Okay, I want to bless you guys with something really quick. All you see is what you're going through. God promised you restoration. God promised you or has been speaking to you about what your spouse may be going through. But if you think about the Bible, if you think about the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, if you've read the Gospels, and I hope you have, and if you haven't, I encourage you to do so, they're all the same stories with one exception. Each book is telling a different perspective from the same story. So all witness the same thing, but like Luke talked about it from a medical point of view because he was a doctor. Let me make this make sense. All you see right now is that you're aching for your spouse to come back home. You're aching to meet your spouse. Like you have that longing, that desire. Remember, when it comes to your God-ordained spouse, you're also connected spiritually. So a lot of that ache that you feel is not just your own, your spouse is feeling that. They may not be showing that. You see the weight of it all. And I mean W-A-I-T. And thank you, Holy Spirit, W-E-I-G-H-T. You see both weights of it all. But you got to see it from a different perspective. On the other side of that mountain, thank you, Holy Spirit, like when Abraham was going to sacrifice his son Isaac, he had no idea that what was going on the other side of that mountain. The ram was coming up on the other side of the mountain in the right timing to be there. So Abraham never needed to sacrifice Isaac, and instead he was going to sacrifice the ram in the bush. You only see your view of it, your mountain, your journey up that mountain, this steep journey, this treacherous journey, that on the other side of that mountain, your spouse is longing for you. Your spouse is grieving. Your spouse is having remorse for how they treated you and how they left. You don't see manifestation yet because what your spouse is feeling, what they're enduring, what they're suffering, what they're going through, maybe the Lord needs them to sit in that just a little bit longer. If you were to write a book about your marriage restoration or your marriage promise, you're only telling from one perspective of the book. Like you're writing from Matthew, you're writing from Mark, but your spouse may be able to come in and write their experience. Because remember, thank you, Holy Spirit, the whole point of this restoration is for the Lord to get glory. You're not the only one that's going to have a testimony from this. You're not the only one that has experience from this. You may have been telling Matthew or Mark's perspective, but then when your spouse comes in, because now the two become one, they're telling from Luke or John. I'm just trying to give you guys a different perspective. They also have to have their testimony in this. They also have to have their point of view in this, their experience in this. What was it like stepping out? What was it like when you knew the Holy Spirit was convicting you inwardly when you were off with the counterfeit? What was it like when you knew Holy Spirit kept convicting your heart that your wife is at home and that's where you should be, or that your husband is at home and that's where you should be? What did that conviction feel like? What did it feel like when you kept trying to run away from God? What did it feel like while you were in your prodigal mindset, when you were in that pig pen and you came to yourself? Y'all got to understand the Lord is so intentional. He's so sovereign. He's so strategic. I don't want my glory just from your perspective. I'm going to get more glory from their perspective along with your perspective. They need to be able to tell what it was like when they felt that conviction, when they ignored it. Thank you, Holy Spirit. What was it like when God kept nudging them and telling them, you know, you shouldn't be here. You know, you should go home. You know, you shouldn't do that. You know, you shouldn't be going here. You know where you're supposed to be. They got to be able to tell their part of the story also, because that's also their testimony for his glory. What was it like the times that they were losing sleep because the Lord was pressing on their pillow in the middle of the night? Was it like when they thought they were too far gone to come back home or even to come back to the Lord? They got to be able to tell that part of their testimony, that part of the story. Your story is unfinished. All you see is your point of view. Jesus could have healed Lazarus while he was sick. He did not. God could have healed your marriage before it got to the point of separation, before it got to the point of infidelity or adultery. He could have stepped in and intervened then. But there are some things he allowed for numerous reasons, because I'm going to get more glory out of it after Lazarus dies, after your spouse leaves, after there is a counterfeit involved, after they've ran from me and have rebelled. I get more glory for that. Not only did I wait till Lazarus died, I purposely waited 4 days after his death so nobody could take credit for it. Jesus could have healed Lazarus when he was sick and still had gotten glory. But the Father saw fit to purposely wait for that situation to look impossible, because I'm going to get the most glory out of that. Nothing is wasted. There's a side that your spouse, they're working on their part of the testimony. They may not know it yet. You know, maybe they're still dealing with the conviction. Maybe they're still in their running stage. Maybe they're under God's judgment right now. Whatever they're in, that too has to play out. While you're coming up that mountain and you only see what you've endured, what you had to go through. Imagine what was going through Abraham's mind as he was going up this mountain to sacrifice the one promise that God finally gave him, his son Isaac. Imagine the thoughts that were in his mind as he's going to be obedient to what the Lord called him to do, not knowing God was already working something on the backside of the mountain on the other side. But you had no idea what I was working on, what I was doing behind the scenes on the backside of that mountain. You had no idea, you know, the inward suffering that your spouse may be going through, their convictions, their whatever it is. You had no idea of that because you're only able to see from one perspective. But the Lord saw fit enough that he wants both point of views. While you're just going through what you're going through, there is another side to that story. There's always two sides to every story. And then there will be the truth, the Lord, where he gets his glory.